Hello, everyone. Let's talk a little bit more about macroeconomics. One of the things we use in macro, but also micro, is the circular flow model. Label that circular flow. And you can start at any point here, but I'm going to start here saying households are wanting to provide their labor, want to go to work at firms. So let's say this firm is Red Bull. So someone here at this household is providing labor. And so they are supplying it. The firms produce a product which they are supplying. And then someone at the household, let's say it's at a vending machine at the FH, they purchase it. So when they purchase it, they must provide payment. So they're demanding the product. This becomes the revenue. They're demanding labor. This becomes the wages, which the households have as income to buy more products. This is the basic circular flow. It doesn't include taxation or government spending or exports and imports. But you'll notice that the flow this way will match the flow the other way, meaning that all the goods and services in the economy can be measured either by spending or by income. Later on, when we talk about the expenditure model, that's what we're going to focus on. Now think about this flow. This is the money flow. The green is for money. These are the euros. When we went on lockdown a few years ago, this flow of the green, the money, slowed down significantly, which slows down the flow of products and labor. This is what we were worried about causing a deep recession. So the goal is to get this flow to increase more because that's how the GDP grows. So if the flow of money slows down, the central bank needs to put in more money to keep the flow of labor and products going. So keep this in mind as we talk about macroeconomics and the impacts of all these parts when we talk about policy and where the economy is going. I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to put up the chart for the business cycle and relate it to the GDP equation. So we'll continue. As you saw already, we have the business cycle. And let's talk about the initial policies that are done in order to work with the business cycle. As you see, over time, we do have an upward trend, and we spend most of the time in the growth phase. Peak phase is very short term, trough is very short term. Recessions tend to last about a year. Well, actually, depends. 9 months to a year, some are longer, some are shorter. But in order to be called a recession, it needs to be at least 6 months. So just a month or two of recession doesn't count. So if we hit the recession, some policies we can do are fiscal policies, and we'll delve into those more later. But it's this idea that in order to help the economy grow in a recession, the government can spend more money itself. So for example, it could spend more on roads and bridges and infrastructure and things of that sort. Or it can give stimulus money to the citizens or cut taxes. So we're going to say the taxes are reduced, which gives us more money to spend. Either one of those increasing will increase the gross domestic product. Okay, so this is taxes going down, consumption going up. Consumption going up, government spending going up, makes the GDP go up. But remember, the government gets its money from taxation. So in order for this to happen, they have to do deficit spending. Deficit spending is when the government spends more than it brings in a period of time, typically a year. Multiple deficits add to debt. So if a country already has debt, the next deficit will add more to that debt. If there's a surplus, which isn't very common, then that would reduce the debt coming up. How do they borrow the money? Well, what they do is they issue bonds. So let's say the Austrian Treasury issues a bond for 1,000 euros, paying 4% interest, due in 20 years. So what happens is the Austrian government will, so let's say you buy this bond. You give the Austrian Treasury 1,000 euros. What they'll do for the next 20 years is give you 4% of this, 40 euros each year for the next 20 years. When the 20 years are up, they give you your 1,000 euros back. This is how most governments issue debt and can run deficits. So this is really important that they do this because it helps us grow out of recessions. So understanding when we're trying to grow out of a recession, this will cause deficit spending, which is fine. However, as we grow out of the recession, unemployment falls, but price level starts to rise. Now we have price levels starting to rise much sooner out of this quick recession from the COVID lockdowns, right? For more reasons, mostly supply limitations. And so what we need to do is the opposite. So what we really want to do is have the government do the opposite. They should, when we have inflation, as long as we're at full employment, the government should reduce its spending, increase taxes to slow down our spending also. Okay, so if we're starting to get near that peak and growing too much and it's getting to, the economy is growing too much, we want to slow it down by reducing government spending and increasing taxes. The problem is politicians don't like to do that because they tend not to get elected when they say, you know, we're going to reduce our government spending and increase your taxes. So this was why, you know, there's this talk of structural deficits. That means there's deficit spending even when the economy is good. So it's the structure of the system is now always having deficits. The idea is to run deficits when the economy is not good. That's okay to help us grow, but then run surpluses so that we can pay back that debt when the economy is starting to grow quite a bit and prevent some inflation. What's happening now, for the most part, is that central banks are doing more of that. Again, this will come later, more with that monetary policy piece. And what they're doing is increasing interest rates to make it more expensive for you and I and businesses to borrow money so that we don't spend as much to slow down the economy that way too. So during this these lessons right now is to kind of look at this whole thing of, okay, how do we meet these goals? You know, inflation around 2%, unemployment around 5%, economic growth. This balance between having all these all in sync is really hard to do for the complexities of the economy. And as you saw, we have something come at us, such as the lockdowns, really threw off everything. And to try to get it back to balance is a difficult task. And so that's why you're seeing these, especially in inflation, being around longer and higher than we expected. So in these videos and in these lessons you're learning right now, and the assignment is kind of getting the idea of all these things, you know, work in the written assignment, try to get the understandings of it. And then we're going to take this even deeper into how do we now analyze more deeply or more critically the effects of fiscal and monetary policy. So the second video, again, for the distance learning piece, I think I covered most things between the two videos and with the book readings to answer most things on a written assignment. But again, thank you for your time. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll see you then shortly on class again. Thanks.